The snow crunches beneath each step, the crisp winter air biting at exposed skin. The towering pines stand heavy with fresh snow, their branches bowing gracefully under the weight. A faint orange glow pierces the twilight, a small beacon of warmth and safety nestled deep within the wilderness. The traveler's breath fogs the air as they pause, their gaze locked on the cabin ahead. It's a modest structure, crafted from sturdy logs with a pitched roof partially blanketed in snow, and a thin plume of smoke curls lazily from the chimney. Drawing closer, the traveler notices the intricate details of the cabin's exterior. The wooden beams are weathered but strong, the door fitted with iron hinges that gleam faintly in the fading light. The frost clinging to the windows blurs the view inside, but the warm glow spilling out promises comfort and reprieve. For a moment they hesitate, as if intruding upon a sacred stillness. The forest is silent, save for the whisper of the wind threading through the trees. Pushing the door open, they step inside, immediately enveloped by the welcoming embrace of heat from the cast-iron stove. The fire crackles softly, its flames licking at the dry logs within. The air carries the earthy scent of burning wood, mingled with the faint, sweet aroma of pine resin. The interior is simple yet inviting. Wooden walls lined with handmade shelves, a small table and chair in one corner, and a cozy rug sprawled before the stove. Boots and gloves are set neatly by the door, while a stack of firewood rests within easy reach. The traveler exhales deeply, the tension of the cold journey melting away. They remove their snow-dusted boots in layers, placing them near the stove to dry. A woolen blanket draped over a chair is pulled closer, and they take a moment to let their body thaw in the warmth. The fire's light dances across the room, casting flickering shadows that seem to breathe life into the walls. The evening rituals begin. With practiced ease, they arrange the remaining wood into a neat pile by the stove, ensuring enough for the night ahead. A lantern is lit, its soft glow complementing the firelight, and the room feels more alive with its gentle illumination. From a small pack, they retrieve simple provisions, bread, cheese, and a flask of hot tea. The meal is humble but satisfying, each bite and sip grounding them further in the moment. Sitting by the fire, they allow themselves to fully absorb the ambience. The logs crackle and hiss as the flames consume them, their warmth radiating outward. The traveler's gaze drifts to the frosted window, beyond which the forest looms in shadow. Yet the cabin feels like a world apart, a cocoon of safety and solace amidst the vast, untamed wilderness. As the night deepens, they take out a small notebook and pen, their fingers tracing the worn cover before opening it. The pages are filled with sketches and musings, a patchwork of thoughts collected over countless journeys. By the flickering firelight, they add to it. A sketch of the cabin's interior, rough but heartfelt, followed by a few lines describing the tranquil isolation of the night. The stillness outside amplifies the quiet intimacy within. Every sound is magnified. The soft rustle of fabric as the traveler adjusts their blanket, the faint creak of the cabin settling into its foundation, and the occasional pop from the fire. The simplicity of it all is grounding, as if the world outside has shrunk to just a small, warm haven. Time seems to slow, each moment stretching into the next with unhurried grace. The traveler's thoughts wander, touching briefly on memories of past winters and distant places. Yet the present moment feels more vivid than any recollection, a rare clarity brought on by the cabin's solitude. Eventually, the fire burns lower, its flames reduce to glowing embers that pulse faintly in the dark. The traveler stirs, rising to place another log on the fire before settling back down. The sound of the wind outside grows softer, as if even the forest is succumbing to the night's stillness. The cabin now feels like a living entity, its warmth and light a quiet affirmation against the cold expanse outside. The traveler leans back, closing their eyes briefly, content in the knowledge that, for this night, they are exactly where they need to be. The fire crackles softly, its orange glow casting warmth and shadows across the cabin. The traveler sits on a low stool near the stove, hands outstretched to absorb the heat. The quiet hum of the night outside is punctuated by the occasional groan of the wind against the wooden walls. Inside, however, the stillness feels comforting, a sanctuary shielded from the elements. The dog, a loyal companion with a coat of tawny brown, lies stretched out near the fire. Its eyes are half closed, tail thumping lazily on the wooden floor whenever the traveler glances its way. The air inside carries the faint scent of burning pine, mingled with the earthy aroma of the dog and the faint metallic tang of the stove. A kettle rests on the stove, a low whistle rising from it as steam escapes. The traveler rises, their movements deliberate and slow, pouring hot water into a simple ceramic cup. The steam curls upward, dissipating into the warm air as they stir in loose tea. The first sip is both grounding and revitalizing, the warmth spreading through their chest and chasing away any lingering chill. The room feels alive with small sounds. The rhythmic tapping of the dog's claws as it shifts positions, the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards under the traveler's feet, and the steady ticking of a clock mounted on the wall. These sounds weave together into a soothing symphony of domestic quiet. The traveler takes their cup of tea and settles back down, pulling a thick woolen blanket over their lap. Reaching for a book on the nearby shelf, they flip through the yellowed pages. The words, though printed long ago, feel timeless in this setting. They read slowly, savoring each sentence, occasionally pausing to glance up and let the words sink in. The firelight flickers against the paper, illuminating the text in a soft glow. Every now and then, the dog emits a low sigh, its body fully relaxed in the warmth of the room. Outside, the wind howls briefly, rattling the window panes. But the cabin remains steadfast. The traveler looks up from the book, their eyes drawn to the frosted glass. The snow outside glistens faintly, catching the light of the moon that peeks through the swirling clouds. The contrast between the stormy world beyond and the tranquil refuge within is striking, a reminder of the delicate balance between nature's ferocity and its beauty. The dog lifts its head, ears perked toward the door. The traveler follows its gaze, their eyes narrowing as they listen. For a brief moment, the night feels alive with unspoken possibilities. But after a moment, the dog relaxes, resting its head back on its paws, and the traveler exhales softly, the tension dissolving as quickly as it came. Time stretches and bends in the quiet of the cabin. The traveler places the book aside, reaching instead for a journal. The blank page stares back, inviting reflection. Their pen glides across the paper, the ink forming words that flow as naturally as the fire crackles. They write of the silence, the stillness, and the way the snow outside seemed to absorb all sound. They write of gratitude, for the warmth of the fire, the companionship of the dog, and the solitude that feels more like a gift than a burden. The dog stirs, padding over to the traveler and resting its head on their knee. A hand reaches down instinctively, fingers threading through the soft fur behind its ears. The connection is wordless but profound, a quiet moment of mutual understanding and comfort. The traveler murmurs something softly, their voice barely above a whisper, and the dog wags its tail in response. The kettle is placed back on the stove, its low whistle signaling another cup of tea. This time, the traveler adds a hint of honey, its sweetness tempering the slight bitterness of the brew. They sip slowly, savoring the warmth that spreads through their body. The fire continues its steady rhythm, its light casting shadows that dance along the wooden walls. As the evening deepens, the traveler rises and walks to the door. Pulling on a heavy coat and wrapping a scarf around their neck, they open it just enough to step outside. The cold air rushes in, sharp and bracing, but the sight of the snow-covered forest under the moonlight makes it worth it. The trees stand silent and still, their branches laden with glistening frost. The snow crunches softly underfoot as they take a few steps, tilting their head back to look at the sky. Stars scatter across the vast expanse, their light cold and distant but achingly beautiful. For a moment, the traveler feels the weight of the wilderness around them. It's both humbling and empowering, a reminder of how small they are and yet how deeply they belong to this world. They stand there, breathing deeply, their exhale breaths visible in the frigid air. The dog joins them, nudging their leg gently before sitting by their side. Eventually, they retreat back inside, the warmth of the cabin wrapping around them like an old friend. The fire burns lower now, its glow softer but still strong enough to fend off the night's chill. The dog curls up near the stove once more, and the traveler settles into their chair, pulling the blanket close. They sit in silence, content to let the night unfold at its own pace, each moment a quiet celebration of peace and solitude. The first light of dawn filters through the frosted windows, painting the wooden walls with a pale, golden hue. The traveler stirs beneath the heavy blanket, the warmth of the fire lingering in the air even though the flames have reduced to faintly glowing embers. The dog stretches lazily, its claws making soft scraping sounds against the wooden floor. A deep breath fills the traveler's lungs, the air inside the cabin carrying the faint remnants of smoke and pine. The morning is quiet, wrapped in the same stillness that the night left behind. Rising from the bed, the traveler moves to stoke the fire, carefully placing another log into the stove. A faint crackle signals the flame's resurgence, and soon the room begins to warm again. The dog pads over, tail wagging softly, and receives an affectionate pat before settling near the stove once more. The traveler brews a fresh pot of coffee, the scent quickly filling the small space. Each sip feels like a gentle awakening, the heat spreading through their body and banishing the lingering chill of the morning air. The light outside grows brighter, illuminating the frost-covered glass and hinting at the pristine landscape that awaits beyond the cabin's walls. After a simple breakfast of bread and preserved jam, the traveler begins to prepare for the day. Boots, now dry and warm, are pulled on, and layers of clothing are added to guard against the cold. Every action feels deliberate, unhurried, as if the cabin's serene atmosphere has imbued them with a sense of calm purpose. The door creaks softly as it opens, revealing a world transformed by the light of day. The snow sparkles like a sea of diamonds, untouched and perfect. The trees stand tall and silent, their branches heavy with frost that glimmers in the sun. The air is sharp and crisp, filling the lungs with a sense of renewal. The traveler steps outside, their boots crunching against the snow. The dog bounds ahead, leaving an erratic trail of paw prints that crisscross the smooth surface. Standing still for a moment, the traveler takes in the scene, the beauty of it striking in its simplicity. Each breath hangs briefly in the air before fading, a fleeting reminder of life amidst the stillness. Walking to the edge of the clearing, the traveler gazes back at the cabin. Its sturdy frame is dusted with snow, the smoke from the chimney rising into the clear blue sky. It feels like a part of the landscape, as timeless and enduring as the forest itself. A sense of gratitude wells up, not just for the shelter provided, but for the quiet moments it allowed them to experience. Returning inside, the traveler sets about tidying the space. The blanket is folded and placed neatly over the chair, the firewood restocked, and the floor swept clean of any traces of their presence. Every detail is attended to with care, a small act of respect for the space that offered so much. The dog watches curiously, tail wagging as the traveler moves about. When the last of the supplies are packed and the cabin is once again as it was, the traveler kneels beside their companion, scratching behind its ears and murmuring softly. The dog responds with a gentle nudge and a wag of its tail, as if understanding that it's time to leave. With a final glance around, the traveler secures the door, ensuring it is firmly shut. Stepping outside, they adjust their pack and set off, leaving a trail of footprints that disturb the otherwise untouched snow. The dog trots happily beside them, its breath visible in the cold morning air. As they move further away, the cabin grows smaller, its silhouette blending into the forest until it becomes a part of the scenery once more. The traveler pauses on the edge of the clearing, looking back one last time. The cabin stands quiet and still, a small beacon of warmth in the vast wilderness. The journey ahead stretches long, but the peace and renewal found in the cabin remain with them. With the dog by their side and the snow crunching beneath their boots, they disappear into the forest, leaving only a memory behind.